and welcome to another chat with Helen with our tea, Afternoon Tea with Helen. And I have my tea here, as I always do, in my English teacup. And today I'm having chamomile tea. So it's the end of the day and I want to wind down. So I'm having some chamomile tea. And this week we've had quite a few people on the show, and today we've got someone extremely interesting that I'm excited to be interviewing. So I'm going to have him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, and then I'm going to grill him for some more information. So Kevin, tell us who you are and why you're here, and
Hi,
what
Helen.
you do, all that sort of stuff.
Well, thank you so much for just allowing me to share a little bit of light and love with you and your community, and I thank you for that. And you're just a love, so thank you for allowing me to come today. Thank you.
So welcome.
Well, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm Reverend Kevin Lee. I'm the senior minister for the Metaphysical Chapel of South Florida. And by academic training, I'm a nurse anesthetist. I have a nurse practitioner's degree as well, and 26 years in the nursing industry. It's definitely a labor of love, but it's what I've always wanted to do. You know, Helen, you and I both are such servants to the people. I've always been such a compassionate, driven person. And it's why I'm a nurse. I will always be a nurse. And I think even when I enter retirement years, I will take what we're about to talk about and I will take that to the bedside in hospice, because I love hospice. I love all of that.
So how did you get into nursing then?
You know, it's really interesting because my parents were definitely had plans for me and wanted me to go into business. And so I was actually going to follow that lead and go into Japanese international business. And there, as Spirit would have it, Spirit guided me to a strange political rally on campus many years ago. And I became best friends with this other student, and he was going to become a nurse anesthetist. And it just kind of blew my mind that a man would be a nurse. I had no concept. I had never heard of a man being a nurse. I think I knew men were nurses in the Army or the military, because that's the only place they were desperate for some sort of extra help. But I just thought it was a woman's job. I was so fresh and green from a farm and I didn't have any clue, really. I was very gullible. And I realized, you know what? He's got something with this nursing thing, because I love serving people. And I'm always doing things for people in need, or people who are dying, people who were not feeling well in our communities. And I just went naturally into nursing. And he and I both were geared towards nursing anesthesia, because we wanted to work in the operating room and deliver our own medicine and manage our own patients and work with surgeons. And it really just was a very parallel practice, because on the farms, on the little farms in Texas where we're from, we provided medical care and surgical care and birthing and euthanasia for our animals, our livestock. So it was very natural to me. It didn't bother me in the least. So I really I gravitated really towards anesthesia, because I had already been practicing medicine to a degree, and to a degree.
And without anesthesia, well, nothing happens. You have to be.
Not in this country. If you go to Asia, they actually have some amazing acupuncture analgesia, anesthesia, and acupressure. It's really stunning, some of the research.
Yes, I love acupuncture, and I'm also certified in acupressure and emotional freedom techniques, which is acupuncture without the needles. So I love it all, So let me ask you this then. So yes. You were nursing here. So how did we get this bridge from nursing into going into the church life over here, the spiritual realm and all that sort of thing?
Well, it's interesting, because I had begun to really kind of dabble in this world a little bit, going to intuitive readers and mystics in different cities where I lived. And looking back, I had no clue really who I was interacting with. And I was actually interacting with trance mediums, who were spiritual counselors, and that's how they would advertise themselves in the local New Age section of the little magazines in different cities.
Right.
And I just knew, for some reason, I always seemed to conveniently, or now it's synchronistically, but coincidentally,
Right.
I'd always find these counselors who would fall asleep during my session. And at first I thought it was weird, but they would fall asleep, and very quickly another voice would come through, and I thought, well, it is weird, but the information always seems to help me. And I had no
Yeah.
clue what was really going on. I just knew they could help me through all the little problems I had making decisions, and my life was always better when I followed the advice. And so what happened was I finished graduate school here in South Florida at Florida International University with my graduate degree in anesthesia, in nursing anesthesia. And I had been practicing for just a few months. And one day I felt what I guess terminology I would have used in the past I would have used. I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit. Now I know that it was the soul of the dying minister of my church, my now church. And this presence came into my home, and I could feel the personality of it. And I could just feel, get up, get out of your house, go. And I thought, this is so strange, what's going on? And before I knew it, I was in my car, and I said out loud, jokingly, now what? And I could have swore I heard the word drive south. So I thought, okay, I'll drive south. I drove south past the airport into Dania Beach, the sleepy little town of Dania Beach. There's nothing going on there. And I thought, this is crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, as just drove into that little town, I see the sign, Metaphysical Chapel. And I thought, what? I thought, that is weird. How did those two words ever go together? Where I come from, that is angels dating demons. They would never go together. So I thought, that's weird. And I tried to drive away from it and ignore it, the presence returned in my car, and it filled my car, and I could feel, turn around, go back. And I thought, what is going on? Well, to make a long story short, basically I went into the church a couple of weeks later. I went back, and I realized, as I sat there and listened to this lady minister deliver metaphysical interpretations of Bible scriptures, that it was exactly what my soul had been seeking since I was a child. All those mystical stories of the Bible, of the different prophets and Jesus and Moses and all these other characters, the kings with all these prophetic and mystical abilities. I always believed they were real. And I knew there was something that the preachers and the reverends and the ministers and the priests were not telling me. But now I know it's because they didn't have any clue. They weren't trained to interpret the Bible the way we in our church system do, and within some other church systems interpret metaphysically. So basically, I found my new home, and pretty soon I ended up being coerced into going to seminary. And I fell in love with it. And then I fell in love with my community. And then my minister retired. And it was either close the doors or continue serving. And I thought, I'm a nurse. I serve people, and I have to serve this community. They need me. If the doors close, the light will be blown out. The light of this lamp. And I thought, it's changed my life. I can't let it go. So I began to serve the people, and I began to continue serving spirit, and I developed my own spiritual gifts of spiritual healing and intuition and mediumship and public speaking and ministry, and grew the church. And that's where I am today. I love this.
I noticed from your website about your public speaking. So when you go out public speaking, what sort of things do you get invited to speak about?
Sure, absolutely. I'll tell you, in the last year especially, it's quite interesting. I've begun to speak at what we call afterlife conferences. And one in particular that I totally love and celebrate, which is called We Don't Die Conference Series. And there's also a radio show. It's the largest collection of afterlife interviews on radio, and it's called We Don't Die Radio. You can find that on YouTube. A little plug for them.
I saw that, yes.
But it's I mean, the lady who runs it, who she was actually guided by spirit to create it, Sandra Champlain, she has done a marvelous job gathering the people who've had experiences with near-death experience, shared death
Mm-hmm.
experience with a lot of people don't even know what that is, a shared death experience. And I've actually had that, which is where someone, a loved one, is dying, but you have some sort of phenomena that affects you as well. You can see it in the room, or sense it, or smell it, or visualize it, or it somehow energetically touches you and the dying person. So that's a shared death experience. And so anyway, I go to these conferences and present the concepts that we don't die, that the essence of who Kevin is, this consciousness, the personality that I'm presenting today or every day is an eternal soul. And so I will never die. My body will drop away, but my soul will live on. So I really try to just put forward the teachings that there is no death, there's no reason to fear it, and that we continue living beyond that change called death. And how do I demonstrate and evidence that? I do it through some of my research, which is precipitation mediumship. And precipitation mediumship simply means that I have spiritual teachers that are with me in the ethers, the spiritual realms, and they utilize the power between their world, my world, me, the environment, and they produce images, writings, and even signatures. It is uncanny, the highly evidential signatures and even photographic images of loved ones who have crossed on, and yet somehow within a matter of seconds, these images that are recognizable by the recipient are materialized or precipitated, kind of like rain out of the atmosphere or ash out of the smoke, and it precipitates onto a canvas. So it's a very rare form of mediumship or spirit communication. And it is what changed my life many years ago, shortly after I found my church. And because it changed my life so profoundly, I decided that would be part of my ministry going forward. I would heal people through teaching them about this very rare form of beautiful form of mediumship.
How do you when you come across people that everything that you're saying right now, they're thinking you've just left the crazy farm?
I was one
Yeah.
of those, actually. I'll tell you this. I was that was me. So 6 months after I found my church, now remember, I mentioned I probably didn't mention, but I grew up Southern Baptist Christian. So that means we were very conservative. Definitely my mind was washed in the blood of the Lamb of Jesus Christ. So I had a lot of Christian programming in my mind, in my spirit, and in my mind. And it was all a part of my upbringing. So it's really what I had as an understanding of the spirit world and God and angels. And that's all I understood. 6 months after I found my church, I had an opportunity to go to a precipitation seance, my very first seance. And seance, literally, it's nothing scary. It happened in a room with the lights on. It just means a sitting with spirit. So I really want your viewers to understand that. Don't let that word scare you. Hollywood loves to make it dramatic. It just means a sitting with spirit. And it just means people gather together for a common purpose of talking to spirit, really. Prayer, communication, meditation. Anyway, so I go to this experience, and I actually went there to catch a fraud. I went there because I didn't believe that this was even possible. I was actually angry that the medium in particular had taken advantage of my minister and taken a lot of money from her for these experiences over the years. And he'd produced these fraudulent images and writings, and I just knew it was fake or a magic trick. And I was so skeptical, and I feel bad about that. It makes me laugh now, but I was going to out this person and to prove this was not legit. And it was all turned on me because spirit came through, and my grandmother in spirit came through and told me, she said, through the medium, I love the church you found. I'm studying mediumship with you. And I thought, are you kidding me? My grandmother, she was Southern Baptist. She would never study this. And I thought, isn't that interesting? She told me she loved me and she's proud of me and what I've achieved. She was proud of the church I had found and what it was doing for me. And she never once called me a sinner, and she didn't speak negatively to me. She spoke lovingly to me. That was an interesting red flag. Then a couple of minutes later, the medium said, I'm not being funny because it's Christmas, but you have Mother Mary and Father Joseph with you right now, and they're here to tell you they're going to produce a likeness of themselves on a card for you. That is your Christmas gift. But also the project that they are working on with you right now will be the beginning of many more. And they also want to tell you that you have free will, and you can stay at the church that they guided you to, or you can leave. But if you stay, you will change the lives of tens of thousands of people. You don't realize your potential. And I thought, how in the heck did they know I was leaving? And what I hadn't told anybody, I was probably days, if not a week or so, away from literally walking away from the church, because my Christian programming it was running through my head so much that all I was hearing was, on my logical brain, all of my upbringing was saying, run, run, run. The devil is lying to you. This church is lying to you. This stuff is of the devil. It's dark. It's going to tarnish your soul. But my spirit inside was burning and alive, and it said, you found your home. Stay. This is right for you. So I literally was in a self-created mental and spiritual turmoil that had me so distraught. I was very depressed, very anxious. I was actually having some physical symptoms, and I was going to walk away because I was trying to return to have a relationship with God. I just didn't know how to do that. And the church,
Right.
honestly, my little church didn't do a very good job teaching me this world of metaphysics and spiritualism. They weren't ready to teach anybody, really. And so I really struggled. And what I noticed in the message from these two ascended masters, these saints, was Mother Mary and Father Joseph. They did not call me a sinner. They did not condemn me for going to this church. And they actually said, we guided you to this church. And I thought, wait a minute. And then I received my card and I went home, and I sat on my bed and I burst into tears because I realized my pain is gone. My anguish, my mental and spiritual turmoil is literally gone. How is this even, where did it go, and how is this possible? What the heck did this old man just do for me? What is this? Did he slip these little cards into his basket without me noticing? But I watched him like a hawk. And as I sat there and cried, I realized whatever this old man just did for me, that is exactly what I want to do for people in my ministry going forward. And it began my journey really deeper into the world of metaphysics, seances, spiritualism, spiritism, other religions. I've studied a lot of mystical traditions, and I've come across people all over the world with the most advanced, beautiful, God-given natural abilities. And one of my things was, you know what? We don't have these people in our area. I'm going to go find these people, and I'm going to bring them to my area and to my church. And that's literally what I did. I really created a center of light by spending my own money to travel to different places, to become friends with these people, to invite them to share in my community, our community. And it has been an amazing journey. It's changed my life and changed the lives of so many people who've come through our doors.
So for people that are listening and watching that are not familiar with all of this,
Yes.
What would you recommend as an introduction to this type of thing that you're talking about, like a book or a movie or a YouTube, or what would you suggest someone that they're teetering on the edge of believing, non-believing, not quite sure?
Sure.
Where would you direct them?
Well, I'll tell you, some of the more basic, it depends. If the person is looking to unfold their natural intuitive abilities, there are several books out there. One in particular that I have my students study is called You Are Psychic, which is by Deborah Lynn Katz, K-A-T-Z, wonderful teacher of mine. And it's just a wonderful book for teaching you how to unfold your natural intuitive clairvoyance, your gift of psychic vision. There is a beautiful book called The Gift of Spiritual Healing, if people are looking to unfold their healing abilities. And it's called The Gift of Spiritual Healing by Ambrose Worrell. and it's a little difficult to spell, but we can share that maybe in the comment section.
Yeah, we can put it in the links below.
Sure.
Yeah.
And really, in general, I would say that, you know, my church is really an enigma. We were only one of 16 churches in my denomination of churches, the United Metaphysical Churches, but I'm also a member of the Spiritualist Association called the National Spiritualist Association. And spiritualism is a sister religion and philosophy and science that speaks about spirit communication and the continuity of the soul after death. And also recognizes that God is not a person, but that God is just an all-pervasive force that everything exists because of. The universe, the planets, the stars. And so everything is divinely and intelligently guided by that divine source, and it's known by many names: Allah, God, Goddess, Great Spirit.
Right.
And
there are lots. Sorry, there are lots of books and things that people can get involved in, and I love it when one of my favorite books is Biology of Belief, and because have you heard of it?
Yes.
Biology of Belief. Yeah. And when he wrote that book, it was like heaven sent. Thank goodness a scientist, PhD, is actually proving that, you know, the brain and the body is energy and all this sort of thing. And, and I have that book and I recommend it to everyone because people like the scientific proven facts behind it. And it's the same with acupuncture, acupressure, all that sort of stuff. They like to have the scientific proofs, you know, even chiropractic, you know, anything that's in the holistic or spiritual realm, they want proof. So when someone that they feel is an authoritative scientist with a PhD after his name, it gives it a bit of more, people think, oh, well, maybe I'll look into this.
Yeah.
But there's a very interesting book I don't know if you know about. You may have, because you were talking about the afterlife, when people have a near-death experience. And it's also one of my favorite books that I refer to quite a lot. And it's Children of the Fifth Dimension.
Oh, beautiful. I've not heard of it, but it does sound beautiful.
And I can't remember who it is, but I will let you know. And it's a woman, again, who had a near-death experience that goes through and explains the generations and what each generation is called and what each generation was sent here for and what each generation's fears are and what they have to work on. And it goes all the way through to Aquarius, which is not yet here. You know, it's very good. It's very interesting.
Beautiful.
I've read these books all my life, you know. So Kevin, as a person, okay, not as a minister, not as a nurse, Kevin as a person, how do you keep yourself moving along, motivated, and being Kevin?
Sure. You know, I think it's just about really recognizing that you know, I deserve to love life. And that's one of the things that I took for granted for many years was I grew up in a very, what is the word? Work-driven community. So in a farming community, everything was you had lots of duties and chores and tasks. And so really what I found is growing up, most of my life was consumed with tasks or duties, goals. I'm very goal driven, very detail oriented, but I really got lost in it. And I've noticed in the last probably 10 years, especially, or maybe even 8 years, but about roughly 10 years, that if I don't refuel myself by blessing myself with moments of kindness and spending time in nature and just taking little breaks, I will quickly burn out. And also, I'm not as connected to a greater spirit that's around me, that spirit of inspiration, my higher self.
Right.
And when I meditate on a daily basis and when I am able to practice and demonstrate my gifts for people through private sessions or public sessions, and I'm allowed to allow spirit to flow through me, when I'm allowed to share what I love, it seems to pull more of that beauty and that it just refuels my spirit. And I find that if I'm not allowed to share, that it seems to depress my energies, and then the inspiration no longer comes. So I have to find
Absolutely
outlets.
right.
I have to find outlets
Yeah.
for, not up for me to be creative. I have to find outlets. And for me, being creative is not making things, but it's more about being able to share in environments like this, on stage, at conferences, privately, publicly, at church. And it's just about me being able to share what makes me happy, even with strangers in the airport. If I can sit for 10 minutes and just share what I love with someone, allowing that beauty to flow through me to just shine a light on someone else, totally replenishes my system. And I literally feel driven to share. And if I can't share, it's almost like a flower. If I'm not allowed to bloom, I'm going to die. So I have to be allowed to bloom.
Yeah. Exactly. And sharing is like that metaphor. By lighting another candle doesn't diminish the light from the original
Beautiful.
Candle.
Yes, I love that. I love that saying.
And I think if we can all do that, but you know, human nature with a lot of people is that they don't see collaboration, they see competition, and
Yes,
they don't like
do.
to share.
Yes, I've been dealing with that. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah. So one nugget that you have received that you would pass on to someone that's younger, growing into the world, say like a college grad or something like that, what would you say to them that you wish you knew?
What I wish I knew. Oh gosh, if I had done things differently, whew, what a life. I would say, if I would say to the person, especially the person who's just finished college and is starting a new life, maybe a new relationship, new marriage or something, I would definitely say that one of the things to focus on, continue on the trajectory that your soul has already guided you on, but begin to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable to enter into the heart space. And in your off time or your evening times, weekend times, be willing to put yourself into a vulnerable state by experimenting with things that you've always loved, but you never believed you deserved access to or to experience. And be willing to put your toes into the water of a new experience, maybe a new subject matter that you've always wanted to study, but it just seemed frivolous. But it was something that piqued your interest and kind of made you beam. And I would say, just be willing to make yourself uncomfortable and just gently push yourself slowly in that direction to experience it. And before long, you'll be pulled right in.
I think that's great advice. I love that, because we tend to get on a track and then we don't, we either come off of it altogether and go down the wrong road, or we decide that, okay, we've gone to college, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. I love that piece of advice. That's amazing. Yeah. So Kevin, I have loved speaking to you. It's been excellent. And I know you have a beautiful website, and we're going to share that in the link below. And also, I know you've got some events coming up as well. So if we could have those links also, and we'll put them there so people can find out about your events.
Marvelous.
And again, a great pleasure talking to you. I'm glad you got your internet sorted out. We've all got challenges with internets right now, because every person in the globe is on internet at the same time, and it was never built for that purpose, Yep. So again, thanks everyone for listening, for watching another episode of Afternoon Tea with Helen, where we drink our tea. We didn't actually talk about tea today, but Kevin was so interesting we didn't get there. So, but we'll talk more about tea the next time. So subscribe to the channel, comment to the channel. Kevin's information is going to be at the bottom. Look him up, see what he's doing, find out where he's at, go see him. Go to the Metaphysical Church if you're local down here. Subscribe to the channel, comment, share, and I will see you next week. Helen Bella Basilone, signing out again. Thank you.